I saw an interview that you did on the theory of everything with Brett Weinstein. I'm sure, I'm sure you've heard feedback on that and whatnot. I'm curious, like your thoughts overall about that interview, like how you feel it went, maybe how you. I'm the type of person when I look back and say, "Oh God, I wish I would have said this or done this." Or
Yeah,
do you have any feelings like that about that interview?
yeah. That was with Eric Weinstein, not
Eric
Brett.
Weinstein.
But
Sorry,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, it was an interesting discussion, and it's actually one of the
I loved
podcast
it.
things. Yeah, it's one of the podcast things that I've got the most feedback from. A lot of people responded very well to it. I was a little, I don't know, I didn't know what to expect from Eric. He likes to talk a lot. I've listened to a few of his Portal podcasts.
Sure.
Um, so I expected that, but he spent a lot of time, I think, kind of focusing on me and the way I present myself and the way I argue, as if I'm being mean to people and that I need to do it in a nicer way. Like I was being too aggressive, I think, that's what he was saying. Perhaps there's also a bit of that whole debunker thing. He was perhaps thinking I'm being a bit too much of a debunker.
Sure.
And I was kind of a little bit taken aback by all that, and I didn't know exactly how to respond initially, because my goal here is effective communication. So I wanted to listen to what he was saying and see are there ways that I could improve what I'm doing. And I think it kind of boiled down to him saying I needed to be more open to possibilities and more open to other people's ideas, which is something I kind of felt that I was, but I think it's also something that doesn't really come across very well. I think the way I talk and the way I consider things, it often seems to be somewhat dismissive to people. And a lot of the time, it's just me either on Twitter, just saying something quickly on Twitter, or if it's in a podcast, it's sometimes I'm thinking a lot, and I have this unfortunate habit of frowning when I'm thinking, which makes people think that I'm strongly disagreeing with them or something. So it kind of comes across poorly. But really, I love talking to people. I love having conversations with people who have different opinions to me. And Eric has some different opinions to me, and he also agrees with me on some point. He's somewhat skeptical of the whole UFO thing, but it was an interesting conversation, and I was really surprised at how many people found it to be so interesting. It might be something I want to revisit at some point.
Yeah, so I was going to ask, would you be willing to do another interview with him?
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's interesting that he.
And like, what would you talk about in that interview? I'd be curious. Like, what would you
Well, I
bring
think
up?
the state of ufology is the big issue, really. What's actually going on, and is it actually as significant as Eric says it is? And this was kind of more what I was expected to talk about with him. He has this idea that I originally interacted with him, whereas I was disagreeing with him on his idea. He said that the UFO story is the biggest story, regardless of whether the aliens are visiting us or not. Because he's saying that the UFO story, if aliens are not visiting, is this monumental cock up on the part of the government and the military, where they don't know what's going on, or they've let this story get out of control, or something, or something is going on that's very big, even if it's not aliens. And I kind of disagreed with him. And my thought is that what's going on in terms of UFOs and ufology is basically this very niche little interest. There's a small number of people who are interested in the idea that there are alien visitors. There's a small number of people who are deeply convinced that aliens actually are visiting us and that the government knows something about it. Or there's some segment of the military, some secret project somewhere that knows exactly what's going on. And it's now their mission to try to expose that to the world. But I think it's really just a very, very small number of people. And it's got this massive attention because it's this fun story. It's UFOs, it's aliens, it's secrets. And so the media is like very happy to cover it because they get a lot of eyeballs when the story gets out there. But I think the military is just like, oh my God, this UFO thing will not go away. What can we do to make these people shut up? And what about this guy down the corridor who's constantly going on about UFOs? Because there are people in the Pentagon who believe strange things. He goes back to Project Stargate, where the Pentagon was trying to
Cal Putoff,
explore psychic power. Yeah, they're exploring psychic powers. They're exploring the idea of remote viewing.
Yeah.
Because some people in the Pentagon are convinced that basically magic is real, the supernatural exists, and we can do things like mind reading and remote viewing. And they think that it's something that could have been weaponized. And if the Russians are going to weaponize it, then we should weaponize it too. It's all based on no evidence whatsoever. And there's a similar thing going on now with UFOs. There are people in the Pentagon who think that UFOs are some kind of strange visiting non-human intelligence, when the evidence for that is really, really, really poor. You look at all the evidence that's out there, doesn't hold up to any scrutiny. And there's these promises of hidden evidence, but every single thing that comes out, it's just crap. It's not good evidence at all. And they promise that this good evidence is coming, and then the evidence arrives, and it's a flashing green triangle on the screen, which is probably a plane. And it's not as significant as Eric thinks it is. It's just something that a lot of people believe in very strongly, and a small number of people have managed to kind of leverage into action. So we've got like these UAP task force. We get these whistleblower protections and things like that. It's come from lobbying from people who are deeply invested and deeply involved in that certain belief. It's not actually something that's this big thing that's actually happening in government and the military.